You walk into a fancy restaurant, open the menu, and see the most expensive steak priced at $150. You think, "That's outrageous!" But then you look down and see another dish for $60. Suddenly, it seems much more reasonable compared to the $150 price tag. That $6 option now feels like a better deal, even though it's still more than you'd usually spend. Do you know what just happened? Your brain unconsciously used the $150 as a benchmark, making the $60 price seem like a bargain, even though, without that first number, you might have hesitated for a long time before ordering. This isn't a coincidence. It's called the anchoring effect, a subtle psychological mechanism that can steer your thinking without you even realizing it. Why is our brain so easily manipulated? We pride ourselves on being the most intelligent species on the planet, yet we make the most foolish mistakes. We misjudge reality, make emotional decisions, and often act irrationally without even noticing. You might think, "No way, I'm a careful thinker. I don't get fooled that easily." But the harsh truth is, you're overestimating your own thinking abilities. The human brain isn't a perfect machine. It's not a supercomputer that processes information objectively. On the contrary, it's riddled with mental shortcuts, biases, and reflexes that have evolved over millions of years. These helped our ancestors survive in harsh environments, but they also lead modern humans to make flawed decisions in today's complex world. And all these mistakes stem from one truth: your brain has two opposing thinking systems. One fast, one slow. One makes you react instantly like a warrior. The other makes you analyze carefully like a sage. These two systems don't work independently. They're constantly vying for control in your mind. And the most dangerous part, you don't even realize which one is steering your thoughts. Are you truly in control of your own mind? Or are you just acting on pre-programmed psychological mechanisms in your brain? Join Stoicmenpath as we dive deeper. By understanding these two thinking systems, you'll discover why humans often make mistakes and how to avoid the mental traps your own brain sets for you. Imagine you're walking down a street, and suddenly a shadow flashes past the corner of your eye. You jump to the side, heart pounding, ready to react. But when you look, it's just a plastic bag blown by the wind. Why did you react so quickly? Before your brain even had time to think, that was the power of your fast thinking system, a mechanism that helped humans survive for millions of years. This system works like a street fighter: no thinking, just instant reaction. It helps you dodge an object flying toward you, recognize a familiar face in a crowd, or sense whether someone is trustworthy in just a few seconds. It's fast, powerful, and requires almost no energy. But because it's so quick, it often makes mistakes. That's why you jump at harmless things, trust your gut without verifying, and make decisions based on feelings instead of facts. On the other hand, you have another system, slower but more accurate: the slow thinking system. This part of your brain helps you analyze, reason, and make conscious decisions. When you solve a complex math problem, plan for the future, or try to understand an abstract concept, this system is at work. It's like a wise sage, slow, careful, and energy-intensive. But because it demands so much effort, your brain often gets lazy and avoids using it unless absolutely necessary. These two systems don't operate separately. They're always competing for control in your mind. When you hear a simple question like, "What's 2 + 2?" your fast thinking system immediately answers. But if I ask, "What's 16 × 24?" your fast system freezes, and you're forced to activate your slow thinking system, calculating step by step. The problem is, because your brain wants to save energy, it prefers the fast system. When faced with a tough situation, instead of thinking carefully, we often let our gut lead the way. This is the root of serious thinking errors, because while your gut is fast, it's not always right. So how do you know when to trust your instincts and when to pause and think deeply? The key is understanding the traps these two systems create, so you don't end up fooled by your own brain. Do you think you're a rational decision maker? Are you sure the choices you make every day are completely objective and logical? If you believe that, you might have fallen into the biggest trap of all, the illusion of control. Let's start with the anchoring effect. You're being manipulated without even knowing it. You walk into a store and see a watch priced at $500. It feels expensive, but right next to it there's another watch originally priced at $2,500, now on sale for $1,000. Suddenly, the second watch seems like a much better deal. Do you know what just happened? Your brain unconsciously used the $2,500 as a benchmark, making the $1,000 price seem like a steal, even though it might still be too expensive. This doesn't just happen when shopping. It affects every decision in your life, from negotiating a salary to assessing risks to making much bigger choices. The second trap is confirmation bias. We only want to believe what we like. Have you ever noticed that when you believe in something, you only seek out information that supports your belief and ignore anything that contradicts it? If you think a vegetarian diet is better than eating meat, you'll look for articles about the benefits of vegetarianism, but rarely consider scientific studies that explore its impact in specific contexts. This is called confirmation bias, one of the most dangerous thinking traps. It keeps us stuck in our own worldview and is often the reason debates get so heated. Everyone thinks they're right, and no one truly listens to each other. The third trap is the framing effect. Just change the wording and your decision changes. Imagine you need surgery and the doctor tells you the procedure has a 90% survival rate. You feel reassured. But if the doctor says there's a 10% chance of death, you'd feel much more anxious. The crazy thing is, those two numbers are exactly the same, just presented differently. This is called the framing effect, a psychological trick used in business, politics, and media to steer your thinking without you noticing. It makes you judge things based on emotions rather than facts, leading to decisions that might not be entirely rational. The fourth trap is the illusion of skill. We overestimate our abilities. If you ask 100 people if they're good drivers, at least 80% will say they're better than average. But how can 80% of people be better than average? This is the illusion of skill, a phenomenon where people overestimate their abilities. It happens in every field, from business to investing to sports. Many financial investors believe they can beat the market, but in reality, most fail. You see this a lot in markets like crypto, stocks, or forex. People think they know a topic well when they've only scratched the surface. This leads to poor decisions, especially in areas that require deep expertise. The fifth trap is the illusion of control. We think we're in charge of everything, but we're not. You've probably seen someone smack a TV remote when it doesn't work, as if that'll fix it, or someone press the elevator button multiple times to make it arrive faster. This is the illusion of control, a mechanism that makes us believe we can influence completely random events. It doesn't just happen in small daily moments. It affects how we view life. When someone achieves success, they often think it's all due to their talent and effort, when in reality, luck might have played a bigger role than they realize. When betting on a game or investing in a new trend, many people think they have great judgment, but no one can fully control the complex variables of markets or luck. So how do you avoid these 5 traps? First, you need to understand that no one can completely escape thinking errors. No matter how smart you are, your brain has its limits, and it's always looking for mental shortcuts to save energy. But if you're aware of these thinking traps, you can start asking questions before making decisions, instead of letting emotions or unconscious reflexes take over. In today's world of booming e-commerce, businesses constantly use psychological tactics to attract customers, especially with sales tricks. When you see a product discounted by 50%, ask yourself, what's its real value? Not just what it's discounted from. When you read news online, pause and ask, is there information that contradicts this that I haven't considered? Are you only seeking what confirms your existing beliefs instead of truly verifying the information? And when you feel extremely confident about a decision, ask, is there objective evidence proving I'm right, or am I just being led by the illusion of skill? Recognizing these thinking errors helps you avoid being manipulated and make wiser decisions. Instead of letting your brain control you, learn to control your brain. Your brain can be tricked, but if you understand how it deceives you, you'll have a better chance of mastering it. If you don't want to be manipulated by your own mind, you need to learn to ask questions, slow down your thinking, and not immediately trust what pops into your head. Now, let's explore prospect theory. Imagine you're playing a game. I give you 50, and you have 2 options. 1, keep the money without doing anything, or 2, gamble with a 50% chance to double it to 100, but also a 50% chance to lose it all. What would you choose? Most people would choose the safe option, keeping the 50 da. But let's change it up. I still give you 50 da, but this time you have to play, and you have 2 options. 1, lose 25 right away, or 2, to gamble with a 50% chance to lose everything and a 50% chance to keep the 51. Do you notice something strange? In both scenarios, if you analyze logically, the guaranteed 25 gain and the guaranteed to 25 loss are essentially the same. But in the second scenario, many people choose to gamble, even though the risk of losing everything is clear. This sounds irrational, but it's exactly how our brain works. When faced with potential gains, people act cautiously. But when faced with potential losses, we become more reckless. This is the foundation of prospect theory, a groundbreaking discovery by Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky, explaining why humans don't assess risks objectively and are often swayed by emotions. First, there's the loss aversion principle. Why do humans hate losing more than they love winning? Imagine you buy an expensive phone, but after using it for a while, you realize it doesn't meet your needs. The battery drains quickly, the performance isn't as expected, and you start feeling disappointed. Logic would tell you, if it's not working for you, sell it and get something better. But your emotions whisper, I spent so much on this, selling it would be such a loss. I'll just keep using it. So you keep using it, even though it frustrates you every day. This is loss aversion, the instinct that makes humans prefer enduring long-term discomfort over accepting an immediate loss. It doesn't just happen with objects. It shows up in bigger life decisions. Many people cling to a job that no longer suits them just because they've invested so much time in it. Many stay in broken relationships because they're afraid the time and effort they've put in will feel wasted. But the truth is, holding on to something that no longer has value doesn't get back what you've lost. It only makes you lose more. Second, humans are terrible at assessing risks. Why is that? Think about this. Are you more afraid of flying or riding a motorcycle? Statistically, the death rate from motorcycle accidents is much higher than from plane crashes. But why do so many people fear flying more? Because your brain doesn't assess risk based on real data. It's driven by emotions and strong impressions. When a plane crash happens, it's all over the news, creating a deep fear. Meanwhile, motorcycle accidents happen every day, but don't get the same attention. Your brain fixates on what's dramatic, not what's actually dangerous. This makes us overreact to small risks while downplaying real dangers. Third, numbers can trick your perception. How does 50 feel compared to 50,000 in your mind? If someone gives you 50, you'd feel happy. But if you have 50,000 in your account and lose a $50, you probably wouldn't even care. Your brain doesn't perceive numbers absolutely. It always compares them to a reference point. This is why someone earning $5,000 a month might still feel poor if they're surrounded by people who earn more. Humans don't evaluate wealth or success by concrete numbers, but by the reference frame they're influenced by. You could be richer than 99% of the world's population, but still feel lacking just because you compare yourself to billionaires. To escape these traps, you need to realize that your emotions about money, risk, and loss aren't always rational. Your brain tends to exaggerate fears and misjudge the true value of things just because you've invested time, effort, or money into them. Your brain isn't programmed to make perfectly rational decisions, but if you understand its flaws, you can control your reactions instead of letting them control you. Practice pausing, asking questions, and breaking free from the psychological traps your brain sets. Because sometimes, it's not the circumstances that trap you, it's the way you think about them. Before we learn to use both systems wisely, let's explore the concept of the dual self. Imagine you just had a week-long vacation. You enjoyed every moment. The clear blue beach, the bright sunshine, the amazing food. But on the last day, something goes wrong, you lose your phone, or a sudden storm hits. After the trip, when someone asks, "How was your vacation?" what's the first thing you think of? You'd think you'd talk about all the beautiful moments you experienced. But no. What sticks in your mind is that frustrating moment on the last day. Why is that? The reason lies in a surprising truth. You have two selves living in one body, a self that experiences and a self that remembers. These two selves don't see the world the same way. When you're living in a moment, your experiencing self feels everything. It lives in the present, feeling every second. But when you recall an event, your remembering self takes over. And the scary part, this self doesn't care about the overall experience. It only focuses on two things: the peak and the end. First, your brain doesn't remember things accurately. What you remember isn't what you experienced. Think about a movie. If it's great from start to finish, but has a terrible ending, you'll remember it as a bad experience, even though you enjoyed most of it. The same thing happens with your life's memories. A year might be filled with beautiful moments, but if it ends with a bad event, a breakup, a job loss, or a crisis, you'll see the whole year as terrible. This is why humans overvalue what happens at the end and often make decisions based on distorted memories rather than the full reality. Second, your memory gets distorted. Why do we believe false memories? Think about the last time you argued with someone about a past event. You remember it one way, they remember it another, and you're both certain you're right. But the truth is, memory isn't a video recording of reality. It's a story your brain constructs. When you recall something, your brain doesn't just replay the memory, it rebuilds it based on what's left in your mind. Each time you recall an event, the memory can change a little. Faded details get dropped, strong emotions get amplified, and eventually, You might believe a memory that isn't entirely accurate, but feel absolutely certain it is. You have two selves vying for control. Your experiencing self lives in the moment. It feels the pain when you burn your hand, or the joy when you eat a delicious meal. But your remembering self decides whether you'd repeat that experience. If you have a great meal but get sick right after, your remembering self will label the entire experience as negative, even though you enjoyed most of it. This means you're not living for your experiencing self. You're living based on what your remembering self decides you experienced. This is why humans often make irrational choices. You might stay in a job you hate every day just because you remember it once brought success. You might cling to an unhappy relationship because you remember it was once good. You're not living to enjoy the moment. You're living by a distorted version of your memories. So how do you balance both selves without being deceived? First, remember that your memories don't always reflect reality. When you feel an experience was terrible, ask yourself, was that the whole experience or just one bad moment? When you judge your past, remember that what you recall might have changed over time. And most importantly, if you want a fulfilling life, don't just live to please your remembering self. Learn to savor each moment with your experiencing self. Because in the end, the true meaning of life isn't in what you remember. It's in what you truly live through. You've learned that your brain has two thinking systems, one fast, one slow. You've seen how it can be manipulated by thinking errors you don't even notice. But here's how to harness your brain's power without being tricked by it. When should you trust your intuition, and when should you think carefully? When you understand how to use them at the right time, you'll gain sharper wisdom, make better decisions, and avoid dangerous mistakes. So when should you trust your intuition? Intuition is a powerful tool, but it's not always right. You should trust it in familiar situations where you have enough experience to recognize hidden patterns. An experienced doctor can diagnose a patient just by looking at their complexion. A pro athlete can predict the ball's direction before it's passed. A seasoned investor can sense the market without looking at charts. That's not luck. It's intuition based on real experience. But if you lack experience, if you've never encountered a similar situation before, your intuition is just a trick of your brain. When you face an important decision in an unfamiliar field, doubt your gut. It's likely being driven by emotions. So when should you activate slow thinking? You need to use your slow thinking system for important decisions, complex situations, and matters involving money, your future, or relationships. When you're about to buy something expensive, don't just look at the discount and let the anchoring effect sway you. When you hear news, don't believe it right away. Ask yourself, am I being led by confirmation bias? Is this information truly objective? When you see someone succeed, don't assume they're better than you. You might only be seeing the tip of the iceberg, not the failures they've faced. If a decision could impact your life for years to come, pause, ask questions, and think again before acting. The problem is, slow thinking requires energy and patience, while humans tend to be lazy thinkers. But the good news is, you can train it like a muscle. Always remember to ask questions before deciding. Don't let your brain trick you with what's easy. Learn to slow down for big decisions, but be quick in familiar situations. Use the power of intuition when you have real experience, but always let logic double-check what your gut tells you. And most importantly, don't feel pressured or upset. Remember that you can't completely eliminate thinking errors, but you can learn to recognize them. That's the first step to mastering yourself. In summary, the human brain is an incredible machine, but it's not perfect. It's programmed to save energy, react quickly to danger, and use mental shortcuts to make decisions easily. But because of this, it's full of cognitive traps that, if you don't recognize them, will keep you fooled by your own mind without you even realizing it. You believe you're a rational thinker, but the truth is, most of your decisions are made by a fast thinking system, a system that relies on instincts, emotions, and fleeting impressions rather than objective truth. You've seen how your brain can manipulate you. You've learned that it has two thinking systems, one fast, one slow, and these two systems are constantly vying for control in your mind. When the fast system takes over, you act on reflex, make decisions based on feelings, and easily fall into psychological traps like the anchoring effect, confirmation bias, the illusion of skill, or loss aversion. When the slow system kicks in, you think more carefully, analyze logically, but you can also get tired and give up before finding the truth. You need to realize that you're not as rational as you think. But recognizing this isn't enough. You must train your slow thinking ability. Don't trust your gut when you lack experience in a field. Don't let your brain push you into hasty decisions just because it wants to save energy. Take the time to pause, think, and double-check your thoughts. In a world where people are increasingly swayed by sensational news, misinformation, and invisible psychological traps, knowing how to think correctly is your greatest advantage. Stillman Path calls this the art of discernment. Before letting anything into your mind, question it. You can keep living as you always have, letting your brain make decisions on autopilot. Or you can choose to live consciously, recognizing your own limits and learning to control your thoughts instead of letting them control you. And if you can do that, you won't just make better decisions, you'll change the way you see the world with a deeper, more accurate perspective, less swayed by the illusions your brain creates. Because in the end, the difference between an ordinary person and a truly wise one isn't in intelligence. It's in the ability to discern what's real and what's an illusion in their own thoughts. Thank you for joining Stillman Path on this journey. Don't forget to give Stillman Path a like, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with your loved ones. Stillman Path wishes you a clear mind and a peaceful heart.